Hi everyone. I thought it might be helpful to make a little video on how to use Sketchup to design a friction folder. I wanted to keep this video short, and so the friction folder we're going to be designing is going to be dead simple, maybe a little bit ugly just to keep things moving. And I'm also going to have to assume that you have a basic working knowledge of how to use Sketchup and its basic commands and tools like rectangles, arcs, and circles and such. And we're also going to be using groups and components. So if those things are completely unfamiliar to you, brush up on the basics of SketchUp and come on back. So to start off with, we have a blank template. We'll delete our gal here. And I like to work in millimeters just because I think it gives me a little bit more control. So we're going to go into the model info, change our architectural format to decimal so we get our millimeters. And then I want to create a working surface. So we're going to use the orient tool to move ourselves around to a topwise view. I'm going to use the rectangle to draw a rectangle that's going to be a little bit bigger than the overall size of the knife. So we'll take 180 millimeters long by 30 millimeters tall. Command-Shift-Z zooms us all the way in. Zoom back out and orient so we're looking right down on top of that. Now I'm going to make this a group just so that we can draw on top of it without affecting it. Alright, this keeps all our points kind of oriented on the Z-axis and makes it easier for us to draw. Alright, to start off with, I'm going to use some guides just to define the outside and the outside edges of our folder. So we'll come down and we'll say that this is going to be about 25 millimeters tall overall and about 165 millimeters long. With a blade length, we'll just say 70 millimeters long. And I'll go ahead and pick another line here that's 12 millimeters, which is about center between the top and the bottom. To define the blade, we'll go up here at the edge of the blade where it's going to meet the handle, use the arc tool to go out here to where the tip will be, make a little arc. Still using the arc, we'll make another arc to define sort of the front edge. I'm going to make that a little bit longer. I don't want to get too fussy about details, but I don't want it to look ridiculous. A line tool to finish out the blade. So that'll be our overall blade shape. Back to the arc tool for the handle. We'll go up to this edge, make a little arc down to here, another arc down to about there. We'll go outside our boundaries just a little bit, but that's okay. And then to finish off the handle, we'll make a little belly, right like that. And then finally, to define the top of the handle, create another arc there. Alright, so that'll be the basic shape that we're going to be using. I'm going to delete these guides. And then to remove these from the surface and separate it from each other, I'm going to select that face here, Command-C, Command-V to move it out. Same thing with the handle, Command-C, Command-V. Move that guy out. And we can delete this guy. Alright, so here's our blade, here's our handle. I'm going to make the blade a component, and you'll see why here in a little bit. Call that blade. And then selecting our handle, we'll make that a group. And over here in the outliner panel, name that handle. Alright, now that these two things are separated from each other, we can move them back together. So we'll grab that point and connect it back up. And I think visually, I know I said I wouldn't get caught up in the details, but I'm going to make this blade a little bit skinnier just so we have a little protection for the hand. It looks like I missed my mark here. There we go. Alright. Now I think the hardest part for me has always been figuring out where to put the pivot. So here's how I figure that out. We're going to grab the guide, drop something down that's about half the width of the handle, which is in this case about 12 millimeters. Grab the line tool, and draw a line out that's just a little bit less than that distance, so 10 millimeters. And we're going to use that as an experimental pivot point. So we'll select our blade, grab the rotate tool, use this as our potential pivot point, and rotate the blade around and see where we end up. And you can see if we were going to bury the tip this deep into the handle, we actually don't have much space between the base of the blade and the spine of the handle. So we need to move this pivot point down a little bit, which will move the base of the blade down in the handle as well. So Command Z to move that back. I'll grab the line tool again, and we'll move that down, say, 2 millimeters. That's our new experimental pivot point. Grab the rotate tool, use that new point as our pivot point, rotate the blade around, drop it in there so it buries in a decent amount, and that looks like plenty of room. We use the measure tool here to see we're at 5.2 millimeters. I think that's perfect. So Command Z moves that blade back, and this is going to be our new pivot point. So we'll enter into the blade component, use the circle tool, and make ourselves just a little circle here. And that way we can delete these lines and that guide. Alright, the next hurdle is creating the thumb lever and the stop pin. The thumb lever is the thing that helps you move the blade from the closed to open position and also hold the blade into the open position. So we'll start with that. We'll enter into the blade component, zoom in here, grab the arc tool, make sure I'm hitting that point, and we'll come out a distance that's arbitrary in this case, but can be whatever you decide for your model, and just match the arc of the handle. Out here, do another arc, bring it back down about, I don't want to go more than 5 millimeters because I know that that's about the distance from the closed blade to the spine. In reality, it doesn't matter too much. And then create another arc there, and that's just a basic design for your thumb lever. Somewhere in here there's an open spot. It's probably right there. That's why this isn't closing. Let's see if we can get that closed real quick. That wasn't it. I don't want to get too into the weeds here with Sketchup. So I think I'm just going to leave that. I would have to chase that down a little bit and find out why that isn't closing, but for the sake of just making this tutorial, that's going to be fine. So now the reason why we made this a component, it seems that I made this three-dimensional. I don't want that. There we go. Alright, so we want to make sure we're making our arcs on our faces. So let me do this real quick again. There we go. Alright. Okay. So the reason we made this a component was because if I copy this and edit on one of those copies, it will affect both of the copies. So I chose the arc, or not the arc, the rotate tool, selected our pivot, I pushed the Option key or Alt key to make a copy of this, and as I rotate it to whatever point it is that we want this to remain in the closed position, now we have two copies, and any edits I make, like getting rid of this errant line, will affect both versions. And I'll see here in a second why that's going to be useful. So let's get rid of that guy. Now on my friction folders, I like to go and use the sharpening notch for the stop point on the blade. So I'm making an arc here at the base of the blade and removing that little notch there. I like these sharpening notches, and it creates a pretty convenient point for a pin to go that will stop both the thumb lever and the blade. So, and notice how that also edited this component. So by creating that little notch, we've created a place in the handle to put our stop pin. So I'm grabbing the circle tool, hovering over the edge of that arc to find its center point. So I didn't move that fast enough, evidently. There we go. Hit that center point and make a circle that is just a little bit smaller. We'll go 2.8 millimeters in diameter. And then that will be our stop pin location. Now you notice this overlaps with the thumb lever, so we'll go back into the open blade, double click that, and create an arc from that intersecting point to this intersecting point, up to the top of that, and delete. Now this is when we can start getting to design elements where we start smoothing out curves and such. Something like this. Let's do this so you can see how quickly you can pretty easily make this visually appealing where it also still rests nicely against that stop pin. Alright, so that is basically the blade. I'm going to leave the closed blade component alive and visible so we can now quickly make our spacer. So we'll go from the back of the blade, creating an arc that gives us a little bit of room. Just choose a line. We'll go up here to the end of the thumb lever. And then to make things just a little bit more seamless, I'm going to open up the handle, select this line, shift select this line, Command C, move out of that handle component, Command V gives me this line, and move it back into position. Line so we connect our lines we made for the spacer to the lines on the handle, the copy there, and then we'll delete this extra, and we should have, there we go, an outline for a spacer. Double click that, make that a group, and there you have all the elements of your friction folder spacer. Now we can delete the closed blade, just hide it for now, and then you can kind of get an idea of what your friction folder looks like. If you're going to make this into a template, you're going to need to go through a few more steps, cutting out the hole of the pivot, cutting out the hole here for this pin, and if you're going to print this on a 3D printer, obviously you're going to have to do a lot more things to make it this three-dimensional. But overall, you have the basic outline for a pretty nice template for a friction folder. And obviously you'd want to clean up all these little lines and whatnot, but that's for a different video. Alright, I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, just leave it in the comment section below, and I'll see if I can help you out. Alright, happy designing.